His life looked perfect, a cozy home, friendly evenings with friends, a happy wife. But behind that facade, there were secrets and suspicions that he couldn't ignore. And one day, an ordinary evening around the campfire turned into the beginning of a game for him, where everything he valued was at stake. Now, it was a casual summer barbecue gathering with a few of our closest friends in the backyard, savoring the view of the bay. I'd never been particularly outgoing, so I really appreciated the camaraderie, the light-hearted laughs, and the easy exchanges that flowed between the friendly couples. It was all a bit new for me, and I have to say, I was enjoying it, all thanks to my wonderful wife, Sue. We have a spacious outdoor prep area, where Sue and I were getting everything ready before putting the food on the grill. She was working on a large salad while I focused on the chicken. "Did you hear Bill Davis moved out?" Annie, one of the wives, shared some gossip. Our guests were all gathered on the deck, helping us out here and there. Dale, Annie's husband, was trimming and seasoning steaks for those who preferred them. Marie, the youngest in our group, was mixing up some kind of salad dressing. Rabbit food, definitely not my favorite. Her husband, Mark, was sitting on a stool watching. I didn't blame him. The 3 bikini tops certainly drew attention. My wife, Sue, laughed. Not surprised. I heard the jerk's been messing around with one of the office girls for over a year. She slid a couple of cherry tomatoes onto the thick oak cutting board. "You know what I'd do if I caught him cheating?" she asked, grinning as she picked up the meat tenderizer and brought it down with force, squashing the tomatoes into a juicy mess. The ladies laughed, and so did I. Dale let out an exaggerated "ouch," which brought more giggles and a loud laugh from me. Annie looked over at me. "You think that's funny?" she teased. "Sure. Anyone fooling around deserves what's coming." I was busy slicing up a chicken and figured I'd join in the fun. "If I caught someone cheating," I added, lifting the chicken by its legs and twirling the butcher knife between my fingers and over my palm, trying for a flashy Benihana move. The sun glinted off the sharp blade as I raised it high, then brought it down hard, slicing cleanly down the middle of the chicken with a satisfying thunk that left the knife embedded about half an inch into the butcher block. I didn't get quite the reaction I'd expected, though Annie and Marie gave me a chuckle. Oh well, humor's never been my strong suit. With 2 swift strokes, I split the other chickens down the middle, ready for the grill. I spread out the chicken halves and noticed that it had suddenly gotten quiet. Sue looked pale, dropped whatever she was working on, and went back inside. The group had scattered, leaving just Marie and me to continue working alone. "Guess that didn't go over well," I murmured, realizing my poor social skills were showing. Marie chuckled. "I thought it was funny," she said, pouring her homemade dressing into a decanter. "Not sure what got into them. Sue was the one who started it." I patted the chicken halves dry, sprinkling them with salt and pepper. I like to keep things simple, always had. Funny how complicated my life had become, though I couldn't say I really minded. Then, as I mentioned, I was never much of a social person. I was quiet, kind of a nerdy outsider, and never part of the popular crowd. Not into sports, not a ladies' man, didn't join any clubs. High school felt more like serving time, with no clear plans for what came next. I wasn't comfortable in big groups, but I did well one-on-one or with a small circle of friends. I wasn't antisocial. I just enjoyed peace and quiet. I enrolled in community college and started working nights at my dad's business, doing wiring and installations for networking, fire alarms, and security systems. Since the job was done after hours, it suited me perfectly. It paid well, and I could work alone. After a few months, I had to fill out some paperwork, which was when I learned I'd be getting security clearance to do installations for a large government contract. Dad already had clearance, so that helped speed up the process. The job wasn't glamorous, spending half my time in ceilings, running fish tape through walls, dragging cables through small spaces, labeling everything, and making connections. It didn't bother me. I worked steadily, installing, testing, and retesting every wire, plug, and fixture with precision. There was a lot of paperwork, pre-wiring layouts, office wiring diagrams, post-wiring documentation, performance analysis numbers. I wasn't the fastest or the friendliest, but I was thorough and rarely got called back to fix something. I usually secured us follow-up business by delivering what I promised, on time, on budget, with the equipment I brought along. Who would have guessed that just doing the job right was a standout trait? It was my cousin Jared who introduced me to the opportunity that would change my life. It was pretty wild, moving to Antarctica for a massive upgrade at a government facility in one of the most isolated places I could imagine. My clearance got me in the door, and the hardship pay sealed the deal. The pay wasn't much more, but with food and housing covered, I could save almost everything. I know, I may seem off track here, but it's important to explain how an undereducated, not particularly brilliant middle-class skinny nerd could end up living on the beach in the Florida Panhandle, in a paid-off house, with a wonderful wife, a good job, cool gadgets, and interesting friends. The job itself? Not much to say. Long hours, long shifts. Some people drank and got into casual relationships, but not me. I was still shy around women. Still, as a social outsider, I did my job, volunteered for interesting projects, and used the time in isolation to take online college courses and work toward my degree. Surprisingly, I liked the lifestyle, made a few friends, and watched my bank account steadily grow. After a year, I had to leave for 60 days as per the rules. I went home, did some more work for my dad's company, and then returned to the frozen South. Most people would try it for the experience, and then we'd never see them again. But for me, the solitude, isolation, and the scarcity of new people to meet felt like paradise. During the winter, the place was mostly empty, and I took on the role of a jack-of-all-trades, which I didn't mind. With no other way to spend my free time, I studied, worked out, and explored unusual interests with anyone willing to teach me. I mean, I had tons of spare time, a lot of it, and needed something to fill it. I got into magic for a while and kept a deck of cards and coins with me. I loved impromptu tricks, using whatever was around. I was drawn to rubber band magic and tricks with ropes and strings. Nobody had warned me that magic might be a romance killer, the ultimate symbol of desperation. One of the temporary workers taught me guitar. He was a nice, patient guy who even sold me his old Martin when he left, convinced it wouldn't survive another environmental shift. After he left, a hefty Hawaiian guy introduced me to the ukulele, telling me it was similar, easier to play and more portable. I got reasonably decent at it. Thanks to YouTube, I never ran out of teachers after he moved on. In my second winter, when even I was struggling with the excess free time, I started studying martial arts. Not one of the usual kinds, but eskrima. I learned from a cheerful Filipino guy of uncertain age. He was part of the science team, my first introduction to that group, and we trained together for 3 years. I never got very good at it, but I enjoyed practicing with the sticks, yantok, as I should say, or Master Kino would correct me with a playful thump. I also learned some balisong moves and loved the performance aspect. Master Kino would joke that I'd be a guru of showing off before winning a single sparring match. I also made friends with one of the Japanese chefs and talked him into teaching me his knife skills. It was fun but a bit dangerous, and for a good part of the year I was constantly sporting band-aids, even on dull blades. One day, for fun, he showed me how to throw knives with spin and no-spin techniques. I got hooked, setting up a 2x4 pallet down the hall and marking off distances for 1, 2, and 3 rotations. I'd practice late into the night, only stopping when someone complained about the noise. In winter, there weren't enough people around to care. I wore out my first 2 sets of knives this way. I've always been nimble with my hands, whether spinning basketballs and dining trays on my finger, flicking pens around my thumb, or running coins across my knuckles. Whenever I had a free moment, I'd pull out a deck of cards and practice lifts, false shuffles, one-handed cuts, second deals, and the pass, all essential to my card trick routine. If it wasn't cards, I'd be fiddling with an old Zippo lighter, trying out different spins, slaps, and snaps. When I was alone, I'd find myself twirling knives or playing with my balisong. I'm not sure why I was drawn to keeping something in my hands, mindlessly refining my skills, but it became a strong habit. This habit led me to carry a deck of cards, a Zippo lighter, a balisong butterfly knife, and a couple of custom tactical throwing knives with me, both for spinning and for practicing my throws. Now I had just finished putting the chicken on the grill as we sat around on the deck. Sue was proudly showing off her anniversary gift from me, a ring to match her engagement ring and wedding band. Neither Marie nor Annie had seen it yet. Sue's engagement ring was a single diamond solitaire, her wedding band simple gold, and now the anniversary ring was an elegant arc of diamonds, perfectly framing the larger diamond in her engagement ring. I thought back to the classic three-ring trick that Diamond Dave had once taught me. I reached over to the sun umbrella, took out my balisong, and with a few smooth flicks, freed the cord. The length seemed just right for what I had in mind. As I prepared, I ran through my usual patter in my head, vital to a successful trick. By now they were all watching as I stretched out the rope. "Sue," I said, "place your engagement ring on the rope." A bit puzzled, she still gave a smile to the group and slipped it on. I made sure to show the rope as a single, continuous piece, subtly hiding any hint of the trick. About a third of the way down, I tied a knot around the ring and let Marie check it. "What are you up to, Trey?" Marie asked. "A little demonstration," I teased, holding out the rope to Sue again. "Now, the wedding band?" She hesitated, saying softly, "You know I hate to take it off." "You'll never have to," I replied with a wink. She placed it on the rope with a slight tremble. She cherished that ring, and I cherished her for it. I secured another knot, this time at the center, showing it off again, and let Annie examine it. Another trick to keep the audience engaged. Once she finished, I smoothly released the slip knot and palmed the plain band. The key is timing. By the time everyone thought the trick hadn't begun, the real move was already done. When their focus returned to my hands later, it would be too late. "Now the anniversary ring," I requested. "Trey, where's this going?" she asked. I realized that in the year we'd been together, I hadn't done any of my tricks for her. I avoided that dating kiss of death. No wonder she was curious. "Be patient, beautiful." She slipped the third ring onto the rope, and I made a show of securing it with a final knot. Then, leaning across the table to the guys, I invited them to check it, masking my actions perfectly as I slipped the previously palmed ring under a napkin. Everyone was now part of the trick. Diamond Dave would have been proud. Settling back in my chair, I began my speech. "Sue, these rings mean so much to me." I held up the engagement ring with its prominent solitaire, still knotted to the left side of the rope. "A promise," I said, showing it around. Turning it subtly, I let them believe it was the wedding band, a simple, unadorned half-circle. I carefully concealed the rope in my hand, with two equal ends hanging down to create the illusion I was holding the middle. A straightforward yet elegant trick. A commitment, our love, for each other and no one else. Sue nodded, though her face showed a hint of curiosity. I waved around the latest ring, the anniversary ring, its stones sparkling in the sunlight. I was proud. The trick had already succeeded and no one had caught on. All those hours of practice had paid off. The loose end of the rope dangled freely, signaling that the knot rested on the opposite side of the engagement ring. It was a subtle gesture, an integral part of the charm of this routine. A future, I murmured softly, with a hint of mystery. I gathered the center of the rope in my hand, along with the rings, then handed one end to Marie. Marie, you were there on the day Sue and I went on our first date. I remember seeing the love you had for Mark and thinking how wonderful it would be to experience something like that someday. Would you be kind enough to hold this for me? It's a symbol of that first promise. She smiled, saying, I never knew you could be this dramatic, Trey, and took hold of the end, glancing around the table. Next, I handed the opposite end to Sue, sitting across the table, while keeping a firm grip on the middle, concealing the rings and knots. Sue, there's no one else I'd trust with this. Will you hold this symbol of our future? Keep it safe? Of course, sweetheart. I looked between the two women. Hold it firmly. Don't let go, no matter what. Right now, you each hold my past, present, and future in your hands. My hand remained on the middle of the rope, while my other hand slipped beneath the table to retrieve a $50 from my pocket. Marie, you're guarding the past. Sue, you're protecting the future. But who's watching the present? If I were to look away for even a moment, what might happen? They were on the edges of their seats, fully engaged. I'm going to look down for just a moment. When I do, I want you both to pull the ends of your ropes. I lowered my head, still extending one hand as a distraction. Pull. As they did, I tilted my head down toward my other hand, letting the coin fall onto the glass table. The distinct sound of metal hitting glass filled the room, drawing gasps. I palmed the coin and raised my head. The rope lay stretched out, a ring positioned near each woman, yet at the center there was a single, uninterrupted line. Trey, Sue called out, her eyes scanning the surface of the table. Don't worry, love. I may have looked away for a moment, but I never, ever lost focus. I reached for the engagement ring, rubbed the hidden knot loose, and let the ring drop into my hand. I showed it to everyone and handed it to my wife. Taking her hand, I slipped the ring back onto her finger. My promise remains untouched. I placed my hand over the ring in front of her and released it as well. Showing her the anniversary ring, I put it on Sue's finger. This is our future. I trust you to safeguard it always. I gave them a moment to take in the rope, now marked by 2 empty knots. As the tension settled, I took the rope from them, glancing around the table. All right, past and future are all set. So what about the present? Where's the commitment? I tried to make a joke of it and got a soft laugh in return. Then I looked down the table. Hey, anyone up for helping me get my marriage back? They seemed surprised, glancing between one another and Sue. I pointed to the napkin on the table near them, and Mark lifted it to reveal the wedding band lying there. Annie and Marie burst into applause and laughter. After a pause, the guys began to join in, and Dale slid the ring down the table to me with a grin. Think you lost this, he laughed. I picked up the ring, examining it. Still flawless. I winked at Dale. Never really lost it, trust me. Handing it back to Sue, I watched her try to put it on, her fingers shaking. I held her hand. It was just a trick, love. Just a joke. We both know that nothing could ever shake our commitment. She nodded hesitantly. I have to go to the bathroom, she said, standing up and almost jogging toward the house. Marie was studying the rope. God, mystery. How do you come up with this stuff? That was incredible. I laughed, knowing the air of mystery around me was what intrigued them the most. You're not the only ones with secrets, I teased, giving her a wink. Refill, gentlemen? I asked the husbands seated at the far end, who were huddled together murmuring. Then I never had any dating experiences in high school, and things didn't improve much once I started working on the station. I did have a memorable encounter, though, with a woman who worked on a tanker and had 72 hours of leave. Spending 2 nights together, I gained some valuable life experience. She was straightforward, no nonsense, and rough around the edges. For 48 of those hours, I found myself believing I was in love. During my last winter on the station, I entered into an unusual relationship. One of the scientists, a striking, older, married woman, unexpectedly approached me. "Can I buy you a drink?" she asked. "I don't drink much, but I'd be fine with one. I'll insist on paying, though." I probably sounded naive. She was earning at least 3 times my salary. That made her smile. I ended up buying her 2 Long Island iced teas, which gave her the confidence to make her intentions clearer. "Trey, can you keep things private?" she asked. "Always, Dr. Ross." I knew her as a colleague of Master Kino, though we weren't friends. "How long have you been here?" she asked. "I remember seeing you around when I arrived 2 years ago. Kino says you've been here even longer than him." "This will be my 5th winter here." 5? How do you manage it? The winters, I mean. Summer's not so bad. I actually like it. I have my hobbies. I think I'm comfortable on my own, don't need a lot of distractions. She fidgeted with her hair, almost like a nervous teenager, then moved her chair a bit closer to me. "Last winter nearly drove me crazy. The lab turned into a chaotic mess, like one giant party. I just can't be part of that. I'm married. Happily married, I like to think. Married? I've never seen your husband. He's a professor. I couldn't turn down this opportunity. Do you get lonely?" "Desperately. Could you help me with something? I know it's going to sound strange." It was, in its own way. Dr. Katie Ross became a significant part of my winter. 47 years old and entirely out of my league. Elegant, insightful, and captivating. She invited me to spend time with her, asking me to be there for her in moments of loneliness. For 5 long months, I found myself drawn to her. In return, she mentored me, gave me challenging assignments in the lab, and introduced me to the in crowd. I'm sure some might think I'm a bit soft. Maybe they're right. I valued the connection, the closeness, the care, and just being there for someone. I was surprised when she even included me on calls with her husband, who expressed his gratitude, thanking me for looking after her and treating her with respect. Being among the station's key staff, the ones we were there to support, was exciting. When I told her this would be my last assignment, she grew emotional. While we each left for breaks every year, I admitted I wouldn't be returning after this one. Then her husband reached out. Unexpectedly, he thanked me for all I'd done for both of them and assured me they'd be there for me if I ever needed anything. He mentioned that she had a parting gift planned for me. We spent 2 incredible days together, fulfilling dreams and creating memories I would never forget. She showed a side of herself that was rarely visible, her usually reserved demeanor giving way to deep emotion. As we shared our final moments, she shed silent tears, deeply moving to witness. I'll always remember Dr. Katie Ross. Afterward, she took my hand and led me to the station's largest conference hall. I was stunned upon entering. Nearly 100 people had gathered to say goodbye, almost the entire winter staff. It was the grandest farewell I'd ever experienced there. I realized then that only 6 others had been around longer than I had, and I'd probably built more connections than I'd realized. They were all good people. I was truly going to miss them. After 5 long tours, I was well compensated, experienced, educated, and had a growing bank account, thanks to some smart investments guided by a local scientist. I had changed significantly, both physically and mentally. I still considered myself a loner, though I now valued my friendships. I had grown tired of solitude and wanted to reconnect with society. My time with Dr. Ross had left its mark. I'd put on some weight and picked up a few souvenirs along the way. Several scars on my hands and arms from playing with knives, an unpleasant burn on my calf from a kitchen mishap, and a rough 3-inch scar near my temple, almost hidden by my hairline, from a fall off a ladder. I thought it added character. I needed something to stand out because otherwise I was pretty average. Katie and her friends pulled through, and I secured a contracting job at Hurlburt Field in Fort Walton Beach. I had an MBA and a bachelor's in computer science, plus multiple Cisco certifications. I also had written recommendations from some of the most reputable names in their fields, and a list of references that could make even a professional athlete blush. One of Master Kino's connections set up my company, and any side projects I did for scientists were billed through it. It built my work history and padded my finances more than I had anticipated. Katie and Master Kino never even mentioned it. I simply signed the papers they gave me and let them handle the details. With my background in network wiring, it seemed natural to move into IT. I was pleasantly surprised at how well it paid. I guess I had my station friends to thank for that. At 26, I had claimed 8 years of networking experience, since wiring technically counted, an advanced degree, an $85 an hour job with unlimited overtime, and no social life. I missed my friends. Then Sue entered my life. "So, Mystery, are you coming to the 4th of July cookout at the yacht club?" Mystery? Was she talking to me? The petite brunette had me cornered, clearly amused by the way she was teasing me. I'd never been good at talking to girls, especially pretty ones like her. Once I got to know someone, it wasn't so bad, but strangers? They intimidated me. "No," I muttered, glancing around for a way out. She grabbed my arm, laughing. "Oh no, you're not getting away that easy. You're coming." I blinked in surprise. "Have to?" She nodded. "I already told the girls you're my date. You wouldn't want to make me look like a liar, would you?" When I was stressed, I had this habit of fidgeting, and I found myself turning a Liberty quarter over in my hand, rolling it between my fingers, something I did instinctively to calm myself. "Date?" I asked. "Come on, I know you must date. You can't keep all your secrets forever. We're going, and that's final." She pressed a piece of paper into my hand. "Pick me up at noon. Don't be late. Oh, and we're bringing my famous German potato salad, so no motorcycle. I want to ride in that gorgeous Corvette of yours." Yes, I did have a Corvette, a '69 big block Stingray convertible, triple black, my very first car. One of the pilots I knew was relocating overseas, and I'd snagged it for a steal at just $24,000, less than most new cars. I also had a '72 Moto Guzzi 850 GT that I'd fallen for the moment I saw it. Just $4,000, and it was mine. Living near a few major military bases meant there were always great vehicles available second-hand. I'd saved up nearly 5 years' worth of salary and managed to almost double it with smart investments and side gigs. I was doing well financially and figured I deserved a few toys. I rarely drove either of those. They were collector's items, so most of my miles were on my 11-year-old F-150 pickup. 3 incredible vehicles, all for less than one new, fully loaded extended cab truck. Dad didn't raise a fool. Well, not much of one. Now I got stuck with grilling duty while the others eventually made their way back to the backyard. Our place was the preferred gathering spot, mainly because of the yard. We were right on the bay, with about 100 feet of neatly kept Bermuda grass stretching between the house and the water. We had a dock, where my little Triton with twin Yamaha 300s was tied up, and a few big sweet gum trees gave us some shade during the summer. The nearest tree trunk was exactly 40 feet from the deck where I was grilling. I knew that distance precisely. When I was grilling just for myself, I'd sometimes practice my longest throws into a big flat slice of tree trunk I'd hung from that tree. A perfect 5-turn throw was my go-to, the longest one I practiced regularly. "Chicken's done," I called over to Sue, who was chatting with her friends, sipping margaritas on the porch. She seemed to have let go of my little prank. I thought she'd enjoy it more, but I never get these things quite right. The guys had wandered down to the dock and had stopped under a tree on the way back. Dale and Mark were messing around with the cheap throwing knives I'd left in the target. It was pretty funny to watch. About 6 throws from 10 feet, and not one stuck. That distance was perfect for a simple 1-turn throw, even a no-spin. "I'll go down and get them," Sue said, getting up and heading toward the steps. "No need. I'll get their attention," I told her. She frowned. "No need to yell. I'll just be a second." "I won't yell. Go ahead and finish your drink." I took out my favorite throwing knife, checked to make sure they were a good 5 feet out of the line of fire, leaned back, and gave it a strong throw. It landed just a bit off-center, a lucky shot. I practiced enough to hit the target every time, and getting it to stick was about a 90% shot. Hitting a bullseye, though, was 1 in 10 at best. It hit with a solid thunk, and they both whipped their heads around, stepping back. Their wives laughed, and I lifted a half chicken on one of my knives. "Dinner's ready," I called out. Marie came over with a tray, and I started loading the chicken onto it. "Where'd you learn to throw like that?" she asked. "Overseas. Something to kill time," I said. She grinned. "Are we ever going to find out what you did over there?" "You know how it is," I teased. Even after nearly a year, she still asked at least once every time we met up. I know. You'd love to tell me, but you'd have to kill me." "It'd break my heart to harm a pretty girl like you," I said with a wink. Then, absolutely no way around it. I had meticulously detailed the Corvette and set protective tarps in the tiny trunk. The original seats were safely in storage, replaced by reupholstered cloth seats, so I wasn't too concerned about wet swimsuits. I wore surf shorts and a loud Hawaiian shirt, an over-the-top farewell gift from my ukulele teacher, Anamakwalena. Right at 11:55, I pulled up outside the apartment Sue had given me the address for. She stepped out, holding a large foil tray just as I was about to head to the door. I opened the trunk, helped her settle the potato salad, then found myself wrapped in her arms. She gave me a quick kiss. "There, that's done. Now you won't be too nervous about a goodnight kiss when you drop me off. First date, so that's all you're getting, but trust me, it'll be a good one." She winked and slid into the passenger seat. I was floored. I had no clue how to navigate someone like Sue. I closed the trunk and got into the car. "How old are you?" she asked as I started up the big 427. 26. "Really? And you already have such cool toys?" "I manage my money well." "You must have a lot then." The question made me uneasy. "Enough." She leaned back, shaking out her hair. "I thought so." The gods granted us a beautiful day, and I couldn't deny the thrill of driving the Fete through town top down with a stunning girl beside me. We definitely turned heads. "Damn, I look good in this car," Sue laughed. "I ought to be mad at you for making me wait so long for a ride." "Sorry," I said, genuinely uncertain what to say to that. "No problem, handsome. I'll let you make it up to me." She turned in her seat. "I'm a one-man girl, mister. So, when all those other girls start clawing, remember, you came with me, and you're leaving with me. Clear? Other girls?" She blushed. "You know exactly what I mean. I know how you guys are. Not with me, though. No fooling around on the side. I won't stand for it." "No fooling around?" Each time she spoke, I was left more perplexed. "None. You'll flirt, obviously. I can't stop that now that we're out. But that's it. You even think about groping someone, and it'll be the last time you see any of this," she said, opening her cover-up to show her flawless, bikini-clad figure. She laughed. "Eyes on the road, mystery man. Let's make it there in one piece. We understand each other, right? Right, I think. She was like a barnacle. At the outdoor party, where about 30 people from the building mingled with friends and partners, she clung to my arm, parading me around like some visiting VIP. I only knew maybe half a dozen people there, but was promptly introduced to everyone. Someone handed me a beer, and when I finished it, another one appeared. I had no idea what was happening. I met up with the girls, and Sue quickly took the lead. We had other plans, of course, but really, would it be as much fun without you all? She was saying. Other plans? I asked, still totally lost. She pulled me close, giving a quick kiss on the cheek. Don't be like that, she pouted. Next time, we'll hang with your group. You know, I already told them we'd be joining. Next time? Yes, promise, I'll make it up to you. She was putting on a little show for her friends, who started to giggle. All right, mystery man, what did you actually do overseas? And none of that junk about sitting on an Antarctic ice sheet, the giggling redhead chimed in. Sue interjected. Special ops, Aaron. You know that. Oh, great. I worked in the Special Operations building, so they must think I'm part of that unit. Truth is, I didn't really know what those guys did, though I had access to their systems and probably could find out if I wanted. But it never crossed my mind. It was just like working with scientists. I had my job, and they had theirs. With the JSOU, we'd often have Green Berets, SEALs, and other special forces coming in for training, and I managed a lot of their teleconferencing and training tech. Maybe that's where the confusion started. How'd you get that scar? Asked the tall blonde, stepping closer and tracing her finger across my forehead. I felt Sue's grip on my arm tighten. Tripped, I said, not wanting to go into detail about the wrong boots on an icy ladder. The girls burst into laughter. Sure, you tripped. I wonder how many people went down for you to walk away from that trip, Marie, a tiny brunette, teased. The blonde moved even closer, and I could smell her coconut-scented tanning lotion. She touched my arm, running her fingers over a rough scar I got from playing with knives. Warning for anyone smart enough to listen. Don't test your skills with sharp kitchen butcher blades. 46 stitches. I bet there's a great story behind this, she murmured, looking up into my eyes from about a foot away. Don't mess with sharp knives, I said, earning more giggles from the peanut gallery. Heather. Sue's voice sounded tense. The blonde wasn't backing down, and I swear Sue was gripping my left arm so tight it was cutting off the circulation. I bet you're good with a knife, Heather said. Truthfully, I wasn't bad. I took out my balisong, doing a few basic spins, then a Zen rollover into a cherry picker, finishing with a trebuchet. I'm okay. Master Kino always hassled me about favoring style over substance. The girls had all backed up a few steps, including the blonde. They were looking at me like I'd suddenly grown a third eye. What? Do you always carry knives? Even at the beach? Aaron asked. Pretty much, I replied. Sue chimed in. Geez, Aaron, you think a guy like Mystery would ever be unarmed? Aaron shook her head. I guess not. Sue pulled my arm. We need to mingle, she said to her friends, dragging me down toward the water. Then she practically jumped on me, pulling my head down and planting a big kiss on me. God, that was hot. If I were wearing panties, they'd be soaked. I enjoyed the kiss, no denying that. I leaned down and kissed her again since she didn't seem to mind. After a few seconds, she pulled back. That's enough, Mystery, or I'll seriously embarrass myself. Why do you call me Mystery? I asked. She looked surprised. Isn't that your operations name? I asked Margie who you were, and that's what she told me. Margie. Of course, she calls everyone Mr. My last name, Eulalia, has too many vowels, she says. She just calls me Mr. E for short, Mr. E. Call me Trey, okay? She grinned. Like in 3? 003? Wow, she was strange. Yes, as in 3. Awesome. So, what do you want to do now that we've got the introductions out of the way? Honestly, I could eat, I said. I bet. Gotta keep your strength up. Come on, I'll get you something. Not many people were eating yet, but she sat me at a table and brought me back a plate. You've got to tell me what you think of my potato salad, she said proudly, with a third of the plate covered by her specialty. A couple of minutes later, she came back with a plate for herself, and soon the table began to fill up. Her friends quickly gathered around, and Marie placed a plain brown bottle in front of me. My husband brews our own beer, she said. He wanted you to have one. I glanced over at her husband near the cooler, raising the bottle in a silent toast. 3 of his friends mirrored my gesture almost in sync. Would you mind talking to him a little later? Marie asked a bit nervously. He's just over in Building B. Sure, if you'd like. She flashed a huge smile, leaned over, and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. You're the best, she whispered. Was it really just for drinking her beer and chatting with her husband? I started wondering if this crowd might be a little too strange for me. Sue's potato salad, though, was really good, and I told her so. You're not just being nice, right? She asked. Nope, I mean it. If it wasn't good, I'd let you know. It's great. The smile on her face seemed like it would tear right through. I should have known better. You're not one to put on much of a front, are you? I laughed. Just a simple guy, Sue. Honest truth. She reached over with her fork, swiping a piece of kielbasa from my plate. I see you like living on the edge, I joked. I was feeling a little proud. I was actually getting comfortable around her and even her friends, even if they were a bit quirky. Her hand froze. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get you another, she said. I sighed. My jokes always seemed to crash and burn. Just kidding, really. Feel free to help yourself to my sausage any time. I heard giggles from across the table and caught Sue blushing. That was new. It was only then I realized what I'd just said. Oh, he blushes, Erin whispered, and I could feel my face getting even redder. After we'd eaten, Sue left me to hang out with the guys, including Marie's husband. Mark, he said, holding out his hand. Trey, I replied, shaking it. Thanks for the beer. Just let me know if you'd like another one. I brought a few extras. I looked down at the cooler by his feet. There were maybe 4 left, plus a few empty bottles. One's enough. Wouldn't feel right taking them all. He reached down and grabbed one. No, really, please. Someone's got to finish these, right? I accepted it, though I'd have preferred a Guinness. Thanks. Mark grinned and introduced me to everyone. The guys seemed a lot more down to earth, talking about normal things without asking too many strange questions. Dale, the tall, dirty blonde guy, glanced over at the women. Sue, huh? Lucky guy. How do our girls stack up against the ones at your, last place? Prettier, younger, and way more easygoing, I admitted. The scientists I'd been around weren't exactly known for their sense of humor. The girls at this party giggled more than I'd heard in a year back in the cold. The guys laughed. Yeah, sounds about right, Mark said. I bet things are way more relaxed here than, over there. More blondes and redheads, too, I added. Just guy talk. No kidding. Gotta love the good old US of A, Neil, the third guy, said, raising his bottle. I noticed he was drinking a Bud. I'll drink to that, I replied, lifting my bottle. The guys shared a look, then raised their beers and clinked them with mine. Respect, Mark said quietly. They seemed like decent guys. I took a sip from my bottle and remembered my dad's favorite toast. May you have the hindsight to know where you've been, the foresight to know where you're going, and the insight to know when you've gone too far. Mark looked at me a little nervously. No offense, mystery. Offense? I laughed. None taken. To new friends. I said, quickly adding, "Call me Trey." He nodded with a smile. "New friends. Thanks, Trey." Now, we gathered around the outdoor table, and it seemed my botched joke with the throwing knife had been forgotten. We were all laughing at Dale's stories. I wish I could be even half as entertaining as him. Then again, I hadn't done a fraction of the things he had. True to form, I mostly kept quiet and just listened. The drinks were going around and everyone was feeling good. Sue was clearly tipsy, in her fun-loving, flirty mood, and I liked that. It usually led to a hot night together, something I couldn't get enough of. She was incredible. "Ever regret giving up the old life?" Mark asked. "Almost never," I replied. "You know, most guys didn't make it past a year. I lasted 5. Only 6 other guys stuck it out longer. It was more than enough for me." 5 years, Dale said. "Wow. So you're really into this laid-back beach life now?" "Absolutely. Sun, sand, good friends, and the best woman a guy could hope for," I told him. Sue gave a playful grin. "Best woman? Where is she? I'll scratch her eyes out." "Silly girl, you're my only woman. Remember our first barbecue? The first time I picked you up?" "Of course. Best day ever. No messing around on the side, you warned me back then. But you never need to worry. I'm a one-woman guy, just like you're a one-man woman." I was a bit surprised when she dropped her glass. She apologized, got up to grab a dish towel, cleaned up, then came over to sit by me, looking a bit unsettled. "What's wrong, beautiful? It's just a small spill." She sat on my lap. "You know I'm a one-man woman, right? I love you. Only you. No one else matters. You know that, right? Of course, you're mine, and I'm yours. Everybody knows that." I looked around the table. "Right?" Everyone was looking at me with odd expressions. "Of course, everyone knows that," Mark quickly agreed. Dale was nodding along like a bobblehead. "Only yours." I hugged her, noticing she was shaking. "You feeling okay?" She nodded. "Only you, Trey. I swear, you've got to believe me." "I do. Relax. Let's just enjoy ourselves, all right?" She gave me a quick kiss before hurrying back inside. The woman has a bladder the size of a shot glass. Then I'll admit it. I enjoyed the 4th of July party more than I expected. I quit drinking after Mark's second beer and switched to soda. Driving a convertible sports car makes you an easy target for trouble, so I wasn't about to drive under the influence. Sue noticed eventually. "No more beer?" "Can't afford it. Already got a target as big as New Jersey on my back. Don't want to drive out of here drunk." She nodded. "I get it, must be tough." "Not really. I prefer being in control." She clung to my arm again, and I gently turned her to face me. "Thanks for convincing me to come out. I'm rusty at being around crowds. I'm not embarrassing myself, am I?" "No, never." She grinned. "Can I call this first date a success?" "Absolutely. I'm having a great time." She leaned in for a kiss, a real toe-curling one. "Want to take me out for ice cream after?" "I'd love to." "Perfect. That can be our second date." I laughed. "Second date?" "I don't fool around before the third," she teased. "Never?" "Not even for you, mystery," she said, giving me a quick peck. "Though it's tempting." She took my hand. "Come on. Time to say goodbye to everyone." We made our rounds, and I ended up with more hugs and invites to other events than expected. Sue was fielding those offers. At Baskin-Robbins, she chose world-class chocolate and butter pecan. I went with a simple chocolate shake made with French vanilla and chocolate syrup. "So, am I going to have to call you?" she asked. "For what?" "You know. You had fun, didn't you?" "I had a great time." "And you like me?" "I think you're pretty terrific." "So you'll call, right? Won't make me do all the chasing?" "I'll call." "When?" I laughed. "We're still on our second date here. Have a little patience, all right? This is all new to me. You're not going to call Diane or Aaron, right? I saw Diane slip her number in your pocket. Why didn't you tell her no? Am I not enough? 3 dates isn't too long to wait, is it? She looked genuinely worried. I'm not calling Diane or Aaron, I assured her. Or any of those others. Marie's married. She was just flirting. Don't mess up her marriage, Trey. Mark's a good guy. He even gave you 2 beers, which he rarely does. You're not one to break up marriages for fun, are you? No one but you, Sue. I'm only calling you. Promise? I promise. I'm a one-woman man, and you're a one-man woman. Am I that woman, Trey? She was a fast mover, no doubt. I hadn't met anyone quite like her. She was stunning, probably the best-looking woman at the party today, filling out her bikini flawlessly. She was easy to talk to, maybe a bit intense, but not in a bad way. What on earth did she see in a guy like me? I watched her shift under my gaze. I'll treat you right, Trey, I swear. You won't regret it. Better than anyone else ever did. Am I your guy? I asked. Yes, if you'll have me. Then I suppose you're my girl? Otherwise this wouldn't work too well, would it? She laughed and took hold of my hands. Take me home, Trey. Sure. At the door, she gave me that kiss she'd promised. Best kiss I'd ever had, not that the bar was high. Still, it was hard to imagine it could get much better. I was left throbbing when we pulled apart. I had a wonderful first 2 dates, Trey. Thanks. She gave me another quick kiss before heading inside. I walked back to my car, and before I reached the end of the block, I dialed her number. Hello? She picked up after 3 rings. Hi, Sue, it's me. Had an amazing time today. Did you forget something? Is something wrong? No, I just promised to call. What are you doing next Friday? She was silent for a few seconds. Can you come back for a minute? Sure, I'm only a few blocks away. Great. I'll meet you downstairs. I looped back around the block, navigating the light traffic until I reached her place again. She rushed out and jumped into the car. Take me for a drive. Where to? Anywhere, just drive, all right? Definitely a little quirky. I drove us down by the water. The sky was darkening, and fireworks were just starting up. Can we watch the fireworks for a while? She asked. Of course. Want to take a walk along the beach? I'd love that. You don't mind? Not at all. We spent about an hour enjoying the private fireworks people were setting off, with city fireworks lighting up each end of the beach. Walking hand in hand, we didn't talk much except to comment on the various pyrotechnic displays. I let her lead the way and set the pace, and the fireworks were still going when we returned to the car. Take me home? I laughed as I opened her door. Your chariot awaits, milady. I walked her to her door and received a warm kiss. Thank you for my 3rd date, she said, smiling shyly. Would it be too bold if I invited you in for coffee? Not at all. I'd consider it very generous. As for that girl from the tanker, I'll have to find her one day and thank her. She taught me a lot about being direct and understanding someone's preferences, which helped me develop confidence and respect in relationships. I also owe thanks to Dr. Katie Ross. Her guidance and mentorship left me well prepared to make my partner feel valued and appreciated. Their lessons proved effective. Sue didn't mind getting closer after 3 dates, even though all 3 happened within about 10 hours. After spending a while with her, making her feel cared for and truly appreciated, she shared that she'd never felt anything quite like it before. She thanked me, and I could see in her eyes that she felt deeply content and valued. She wrapped her arms around me as I held her close, and we spent the evening talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Wow, mystery. I've never felt like this before. Did someone teach you all of that? I kissed her softly. 2 great instructors and a lot of time, but tonight, You taught me something important, too. Really? Did you enjoy our time? You're not just saying that, right? I haven't had much experience myself. I appreciate you just as you are. She looked down, smiling warmly. You're something special. I can tell this is just the start of something really great. We shared a final, lingering kiss, and she leaned into my chest, letting the moment linger. If you ever need more, remember to come to me, she said, smiling against my shoulder. I'll be here. The chance is all yours, I whispered, grateful for everything the evening had brought us. We've been together ever since. Engaged within 3 months, married in less than a year. We spent almost 4 months searching for the perfect home, and when we found that foreclosure, I knew it was the one. It needed some work, but that didn't intimidate me. Sue nearly flipped when I bought the house outright. How can you afford something like this? She asked. I told you, I'm careful with my money. It took about 3/4 of my savings, but it was worth it. I liked knowing the place was truly mine, and that I'd never have to worry about having somewhere to live again. The house was perfect, not too big, with a large 2-car garage and a carport for 2 more. Right on the waterfront, bayside, with a nice deck in a quiet neighborhood. Everything a guy could ask for. We had a great life. Together we made almost $200,000 a year, with barely any expenses. That first year we saved close to $60,000. Marie and Mark lived just a mile away, becoming our closest friends. We had many friends. Well, Sue did, but they were always nice to me. We were in love, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. Now dusk was settling in, and I sat alone at the end of the dock. Hosting was hopeless for me. I seemed to mess up everything I tried. Fitting in, joking, acting like everyone else. It always went wrong. I wondered how many friends I'd have without Sue. Marie walked down and quietly sat beside me, sipping a wine cooler. You know something, don't you? Know something? About what? I didn't know a thing, not even how to host a party. I didn't answer. She looked back over her shoulder, and I followed her gaze. My wife and 2 other husbands appeared to be arguing. She loves you, you know. It's not too late. Too late? She looked at me, her eyes damp. Don't, Trey, please. You've done enough. It's over. I'm sure it never truly went anywhere. They were careless, but you have to forgive them. Forgive them? I asked, confused about what there even was to forgive. If anything, I was the one who should ask for forgiveness for messing up another party. For me? Please? You're better than this. Stop making them pay. You've proven your point. She took my hand, gripping it tightly. I love him. He's an idiot, but he's my idiot, and I don't know what I'd do without him. Seems like there are a lot of idiots around, I muttered, including myself in that group. I know. I'm so sorry. I suspected, but you actually knew. How could they be so clueless? She snapped. Everyone knows you're the last person anyone should cross like that. I sighed. Sure, everyone knows, I laughed quietly. She held my face, looking into my eyes. Number nobody does. This is just between us. You stopped it. Now you need to let it go. I'm begging you, Trey. Let it pass this time. For me. For all of us. She's learned her lesson. They all have. If they mess up again, I'll help you bury the bodies. Please? Can it end here? I couldn't make sense of what she was so worried about, but I hated seeing her like that. Hated seeing any woman upset. It was a weak spot of mine. All right. For you, Marie, I told her. She burst into tears and hugged me tightly. I stroked her hair, trying to comfort her. I'm sorry, I murmured. Dad had taught me that with a crying woman. Sorry was usually a good place to start. She pulled back, pressing her lips to mine for a moment. God, we don't deserve you. None of us do. Don't ever apologize to me, Mystery. I chuckled. I don't deserve you. She tried to smile, though her mouth trembled. "Don't cry, beautiful. It breaks my heart." She glanced back at the party, where people had started to notice us. "Guess it's time to go back. Don't need any rumors," I said. She laughed and took my hand as I helped her up. "It's over?" "Yeah," I replied. It was getting late, and there was still a lot of cleaning up to do. "Thank you. I'll make it up to you someday. I swear." "Okay, but next time you're bringing those crab cakes of yours." She laughed almost hysterically. "I've got an idiot to take home and straighten out. Don't be too hard on Sue. She does love you." "I love her." "I know, everyone knows. Otherwise our parties might have a much smaller turnout in the future, right?" Without Sue, I thought, there wouldn't be any parties at all, and I said as much. As we neared the deck, Marie let go of my hand. I hadn't even noticed she was holding it. She strode up to her husband and confronted him firmly. He didn't say a word, just dropped his head. "You got a serious break here. All of you did. If there's a next time, I'll be the one making sure the consequences are clear. Got it?" she exclaimed. I saw his face turn red and he nodded slowly. Marie continued. "Apologize and own up to your actions," she demanded. "I'm sorry it's not what you think," he whispered. "Not to me," she insisted. She was intense. I'd never seen her like this, and I was suddenly grateful for my wife, Sue, who was calm and composed. Sue came over and clung to my arm like she did on our first date, pressing her head against me, her gaze lowered. Mark cleared his throat. I'm sorry, Trey. I swear it never went anywhere." He looked at Sue. "And you too, Sue. I never meant—" "Just leave," she whispered. "Please." He nodded and turned away. Marie stepped forward and hugged me. "Thank you." Then she lifted Sue's chin gently. "You and I will talk later. You're lucky, you know." Sue nodded. "I know." Annie looked as confused as I felt. Dale seemed to be waiting, unsure of what would happen next. Marie looked at him. "Well, are you waiting for an invitation?" He shook his head and approached us, his movements slow, as if under a weight. He was tall, about 6 feet 3 inches, towering over my 5 feet 9 inches. He stopped a few feet away. "Sorry, man. It was foolish, we know. Nothing happened. It was just talk that got out of hand. I swear you'll never have to worry about anything like this again." I swear he was visibly nervous. "Please, whatever you need to do, I understand. But my family, they didn't do anything." I glanced over at Annie, nearly as lovely as Sue. Trying to ease the tension, I joked, "You've got a wonderful wife," and threw Annie a smile. "I know. I must have been out of my mind to risk it," he replied, and I let him ramble until he looked directly at me. "Is this what I get? Losing her?" I felt Sue's hand tighten on my arm. "How about next time I bring the main course and Annie takes care of dessert?" He looked between his wife and me, a bit unsure. "Annie's dessert?" "Yeah. Tell her to bring that marble cake of hers. Best dessert I've ever had." Dale's eyes went wide. I took a step back as he looked down, processing everything. "Are you serious? It's really over?" "Yeah, it's getting late," I replied, feeling a bit awkward. He looked up, visibly relieved. I turned away to give him a moment. "Sorry, Sue. I'm truly sorry," he muttered, standing up. Annie stood beside him. "Come on," she said. "We need to talk." She came over and gave me a quick hug. "You host the most interesting gatherings, Trey," she said with a laugh. She hugged Sue, saying, "Call me, okay?" Sue nodded. As they left, Sue turned and hugged me. "I don't deserve you. Forgive me for being so foolish." "If you'll forgive me for stirring things up," I said, holding her close. She looked up at me. "Only you, Trey. I swear I haven't been with anyone else since we met, and I'll never even look at another man. You've got to believe me." I picked her up and gave her a tight hug. "Of course I believe you. I love you." She grinned and kissed me. "Tonight, tomorrow, and every day after, I'm going to make it unforgettable. Save a little energy, okay?" She laughed, slipping out of my arms. "Just a little, then. Ready for me, mystery man?" "Always. I couldn't imagine life without you." She looked up at me. "I swear I'll never give you a reason to worry about that again." She smiled, and we shared a moment I knew I'd always remember. A devoted wife, amazing friends, and a fantastic job. I really had it all. Sure, I lacked a bit of social finesse, but my wife loved me and only me, and that was all that counted. As many before me have said, and many after me will too, life was good.